Have you ever felt like you're being watched, but when you turn around, there's no one there? Or maybe, just maybe, in that dark corner of your bedroom, someone's been standing still all this time. Tonight's story comes from a man named Evan. He's not just anyone. He works in tech, logical, rational. He doesn't believe in the supernatural. But that's exactly why. He knew what he saw was real, and to this day, he still can't forget one thing. She smiled from the dark corner, but she wasn't alive. Evan had just received news that his late grandparents' house in Kansas was being passed down to him. It had been abandoned since 2009. Since he needed a temporary place to live, he decided to move in. The house was in the outskirts of a small, quiet town, so remote that even the internet signal often dropped. But to Evan, that meant peace. He worked remotely as a systems analyst, and solitude helped him focus. The house was built in the 1970s, entirely wooden. The walls were worn, the floorboards cracked, and the tall, dusty windows filtered sunlight in a hazy, eerie way like something out of an old horror film. On his first day, Evan cleaned the house as best as he could. He opened every door, uncovered furniture wrapped in white sheets, and tried to settle in. But he immediately noticed something strange. The house had noises. Faint scratching in the attic. Slow creaks from upstairs, even though he was sure no one else was there. By day 3, that sense of unease became sharper. It wasn't just sounds, it was something else. There were moments when he felt like someone was right behind him. Like when he was washing dishes and suddenly felt the hairs on his neck stand up. Or walking into the kitchen at night and sensing something following, quietly. But every time he looked back, nothing. Silence. He figured maybe it was just in his head. After all, it was an old house, it was dark, and he was alone. So to put his mind at ease, he installed a few mini CCTV cameras in key spots: the living room, the stairs, and the kitchen. Not to hunt ghosts, Evan didn't believe in that stuff. He was actually testing a new IoT monitoring system for work. The cameras could be accessed remotely through his laptop. Every movement would be logged and backed up to the cloud. For the first night or two, the footage was uneventful. Just some odd noises, but no visible movement. Then came night 4. Evan had just finished coding on his laptop. The air was freezing, oddly cold for a non-winter night. It felt like the temperature had dropped all at once. Around 2:30 a.m., he casually checked the CCTV feeds. Everything looked normal. Until he saw something on the living room feed. In the far right corner, the darkest spot of the room, the one he'd never thought twice about, someone was standing. Still, completely motionless. Evan zoomed in. It was a woman. Her long hair covered part of her face, but her mouth was unmistakable. She was smiling, too wide, unnatural. He paused the feed. Rewound. Nothing. She didn't enter from any direction. In fact, an hour earlier, nothing. But at exactly 2:47 a.m., she appeared. As if from nowhere. Evan thought it might be a bug, a light reflection. But then he checked another camera, one angled slightly differently. And there she was again, same figure, same smile. From 2 different angles, the next morning, he checked that corner in person. Nothing. No sign of a disturbance. The cameras were fine, no interference. But when he stood in that exact corner, the air was noticeably colder. Unnaturally cold. He pulled out a digital thermometer. The temperature was 4 degrees lower than the rest of the house. The following night, Evan added a closer camera pointed directly at that shadowed corner, and again, 2:47 a.m., she appeared. But this time, she was a little closer to the camera, like she was approaching. Evan couldn't sleep anymore. He'd wake up drenched in sweat, plagued by nightmares. In his dreams, the woman wasn't just standing anymore, she was walking slowly toward him, smiling, never blinking, silent. By the 5th day, Evan called his friend over video chat and told him everything. His friend asked to see the live camera feeds. Evan shared the screen. The corner looked empty, but then his friend suddenly asked, "Hey, who's that behind you?" Evan froze, turned around. Nothing. But on the screen, his friend had already ended the call shaken. Moments later, he sent Evan a screenshot from their call. In the background of Evan's room, a figure was standing, smiling, just like in the footage. But Evan was alone. From that point on, Evan left all the lights on when he slept. But every morning, the camera still caught the same thing. She was standing there, smiling, never moving, sometimes closer, sometimes farther, but always between 2:47 and 3:03 a.m. Then she'd disappear. Everything came to a head on night 7. Evan installed a thermal camera sensor that picks up body heat, and what he saw nearly made him pass out. The figure had no heat signature, but the space around her dropped to freezing levels. The floor directly beneath her was frosted, and for 3 full minutes, the thermal camera recorded her slowly approaching, then suddenly disappearing, not walking away. Just gone. After that, Evan stopped thinking it was a bug or faulty gear. He knew now he wasn't alone in that house. He was living with something that smiled, not because it was happy, but because it was waiting. That night, Evan decided to stay up. It had been 7 nights in a row since the strange recordings began, and this time he didn't want to just watch the footage later. He wanted to see it happen in real time. He sat in front of the CCTV monitor, hoodie on, sipping bitter coffee he'd reheated 3 times. The digital clock in the corner of his laptop screen read 2:40 a.m. The air had started to feel cold. But it wasn't a normal kind of cold. It was the damp, unsettling chill of a space left abandoned for too long. And right at 2:47, the temperature dropped sharply. Evan felt a wave of cold air slide up the back of his neck, like someone had opened a freezer behind him. Every hair on his body stood on end. Slowly, he turned back to the screen. Something had changed. She was there again. But this time, she wasn't standing in the corner like usual. She had moved closer. A few steps forward. Her face clearer now, pale as chalk. Long black hair fell over part of her face, but her smile, that same unnatural, too wide smile, was still there. Colder, sharper, wrong. Her eyes, hollow. And Evan felt she was looking right at the camera. right at him. He wanted to shut the laptop, but his eyes were frozen on the screen. She stood there for about 5 seconds, then started walking slowly toward the camera, but not like a person walks. Her steps dragged. Her motion was glitchy like a corrupted video file skipping frames. And then, as the time hit 3:04 a.m., all the monitors went dark. Black, no signal. But right before everything cut out, Evan saw one last frame, one image that made his chest tighten. Her face, right in front of the lens, still smiling, mouth open, eyes pitch black holes. And in that same moment, the living room light turned on by itself. Evan jumped up, heart pounding. He saw the glow through the crack under his bedroom door. That light had been off. He was sure. He slowly opened the door. The hallway was long and silent, but from the living room he heard something. Not footsteps, not movement. A soft exhale, as if someone had just run a mile and was catching their breath. He couldn't bring himself to walk forward. So he just stood there, staring at the edge of the glowing room. Empty. The next morning, Evan reviewed the footage. Thanks to the AutoCloud backup, all the data was safely stored. And that's when he saw something that chilled him even more. At exactly 1:22 p.m., the time he'd left the house to grab food, the backyard camera caught something. A faint female silhouette, walking in through the back door. But he never opened that door. He zoomed in. The clearer the image got, the more obvious it became. The door never moved. It was like she walked through it, and from that moment on, she never left. That night, Evan tried to find out more about the house's history. He called his distant aunt, one of the only family members who had lived there in the early 2000s. At first, she was reluctant. But after some pushing, she finally said, "That house, there was an incident. A neighbor girl went missing after playing there. She was about 17. Her name was Marcy. Police said she ran away, but we all knew. The last time anyone saw her was when she went inside that house." And this is what truly kept Evan up at night. "Your grandfather, before he passed, he told me he used to see her every night at 3 a.m., standing in the living room corner, smiling, but never saying a word." Evan hung up the phone, shaking. That name Marcy, it all clicked now. It was the same name he saw in one of the dusty photo albums he'd found in the attic a few nights earlier. A young girl smiling in front of the house. And beneath the Polaroid, scribbled in faded ink, Marcy minus 2009. Now Evan was certain. What he saw each night wasn't a glitch. Wasn't his mind playing tricks. It was Marcy. Or whatever was left of her. He searched through local Kansas news archives from 2009 and found a small article. Marcy E. Collins, 17, reported missing. Last seen near 47th and Haven Ridge. Believed to be visiting a friend. That address was the same house. Now Evan was hearing whispers every night. But not from inside the house. They came through his headset while watching CCTV footage. The volume was at 0. But he heard a girl's voice whisper, "You saw me, Evan. I know you saw me." It wasn't coming from the speakers. It was in his head. On the 10th night, Evan tried to sleep in his car. But at exactly 3 a.m., the car shut off. Lights out. AC off. Battery dead, and in the rearview mirror, he saw it. That smile. 1 second before he screamed, everything turned back on. The next morning, Evan packed his bags. He was done. But before leaving, he placed one last camera in his bedroom. A final piece of evidence. That night, from the safety of a cheap motel, Evan watched the house remotely from his phone. And at 2:47 a.m., Marcy was in his room, sitting on the bed, facing the camera, hands on her lap, smiling. But this part makes no sense. The camera died. It had been plugged into a fully charged 20,000 milliamp hours power bank. And the last recorded video, just her, smiling. Then the camera overheated and popped. After that night, Evan never returned. But the story doesn't end there. 1 week after Evan abandoned the house, a new tenant moved in. They went missing. And their home security system recorded the exact same thing. A young woman, standing in the corner of the living room, smiling. After that last incident, when Evan saw Lilah sitting on the bed, smiling at the camera, he knew this wasn't just a haunting anymore. It was something deeper, darker, and maybe much older than he thought. He felt drawn, not out of curiosity, but as if something in that house wanted him back. For a week, Evan hopped between motels around Kansas. But each night, the same dream returned. A corner of a room, darkness, heavy breathing, and then that smile, always that smile, wide, unnatural, calm, but never comforting. It made his heart stop every time. Eventually, one morning, Evan made a decision. He went to the city library, searching through archives, old local news, missing person reports, anything that might connect to that house. And after nearly 3 hours in the records room, he found a faded article in an October 2009 issue of a local paper, small headline tucked into the back corner of the page. Teenage girl found dead after 3 days missing in Monroe family home. The victim's name, Lilah Monroe. Age, 17. Location of death, Evan's house. The report said Lilah vanished under mysterious circumstances and was found hanging in the guest bedroom right next to the living room. But what froze Evan in place was the last line of the police statement reprinted in the article. Double quotes, ... body found suspended by a belt, fists tightly clenched, and victim's face displayed an unnaturally wide smile. That smile, the same one from the CCTV footage. The same smile he saw night after night. Evan reread that line over and over. But all it did was send a chill crawling from his fingers to his spine. That night, he dreamed again, but this time it was different. In the dream, he wasn't in the house. He was in a dark room filled with sobs. Lilah sat in the corner, hair draped, wearing a tattered white dress. But this time, her eyes glistened. She wasn't smiling, she was crying, and she whispered, "I didn't want to die. I just wanted someone to listen." Evan woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. Something felt different. Maybe Lilah, or whatever entity this was, wasn't just haunting people for fear. Maybe she was trapped. The next day, Evan made a bold choice. He went back to the house, not to stay, just to retrieve a few things, and maybe find closure. The house was still dark, empty, covered in dust. But the moment he stepped inside, that familiar chill returned. Not the cold of an air conditioner, but something alive. He walked slowly to the guest bedroom where Lilah had been found. When he opened the door, the air hit him like ice. He flicked on his flashlight. The walls were covered in markings, not paint, scratches, fingernail deep. There were shaky messages carved repeatedly. "I'm still here. Don't leave me." They thought I was crazy. I just wanted to talk. Evan stood in the middle of the room, and for the first time, he didn't feel fear. He felt pity. Pity for someone who might have just needed to be heard. He softly called out, "Lilah?" Silence. But the room's temperature slowly shifted, warmer, almost gentle. And then suddenly, the door slammed shut behind him. Evan jumped but didn't panic. He grabbed his pocket camera, turned it on, and began recording. "If you can hear me, I'm listening. But you have to tell me who hurt you." Suddenly, the bookshelf in the corner toppled over, behind it. A hidden crevice in the wall, a secret door. Evan pushed it open, revealing a small hidden space behind the wall. Inside, an old wooden box, worn by time. He opened it. Inside were torn photographs, scribbled notes, a diary, all belonging to Lilah. Suddenly, the bookshelf in the corner toppled over, behind it. A hidden crevice in the wall, a secret door. Evan pushed it open, revealing a small hidden space behind the wall. Inside, an old wooden box, worn by time. He opened it. Inside were torn photographs, scribbled notes, a diary, all belonging to Lilah. Evan trembled. He gathered everything, rushed out of the house, and never returned. He backed up all the footage, photos, and evidence onto a special hard drive, which he stored in a safety deposit box out of town. He didn't want anyone to twist Lilah's story for horror clout, because in the end, he realized one thing. Lilah wasn't a malicious ghost. She was just someone who was never heard. Evan moved to a new city, changed his number, deleted all social media. But sometimes on certain nights, when he's just about to sleep and the lights are off, he sees that one corner of his room look just a little darker than the rest. And there, he sees that smile, not terrifying, but sad. Maybe it's a thank you, maybe it's an apology, but whatever it is, one thing remains. Lilah is still there, smiling, waiting for someone else to finally listen. Sometimes, a smile isn't a sign of happiness. It's a warning that it's not over, and maybe she's still there. In the corner of your room, go ahead, take a slow glance over. Who knows? She might be smiling at you too. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to Room 333 Horror Stories, because here, every tale might be a message from the other side. And if you've experienced something chilling yourself, send your true horror story to the email in the description. Yours might be the next story we uncover. Until next time, and remember, close your bedroom door tonight